Welcome back, everyone, to SANDCAST Beach Volleyball with Bourne, and back again, Travis Mewhirter. We are on to part 2 of the World Championships preview. Today, last Wednesday, we went over the men's pool play breakdown, breaking down all 12 pools one by one. That's what we are going to do again for the women. As always, I'd like to start off with a little bit of housekeeping. We got some lights in here, people. And actually, I kind of want to tweak this one. We're still working on it. Obviously, we got some shadows in the background. I got Frito taking a look, but yeah, we got some lights in here for the home studio, so it doesn't look like I shot it with a camera recorder from 1952, one of my grandfather's, kind of home videos. So we're upgrading. We're upgrading the home studio here in Tallahassee. Before we get to the women's pool play breakdown, a little bit of housekeeping notes. First, congrats to our girls at FSU. Jess Horvath and Elena Lamb, they went ahead and won the East Coast qualifier for the AVCA over in Tavares, Florida. And a shout out, as always, to Mark Patalui and Day at the Beach events. If you ever want somebody to run a beach volleyball event for you, Patalui is a good man to do it. Always does a great job. Does it with Hermosa down to a random East Coast fall NCAA tournament in Tavares, Florida. So shout out to Elena and Jess for their big win. And then we had, obviously, the Cape Town Elite. And I just want to be totally transparent. I watched very little of it, vanishingly little of the Cape Town Elite, because we were over in Tavares, and Florida State is priority one. Now, I did keep up with the scores and the results and everything. And apparently Cape Town is just a home tournament for the German women, because you have Sinja Tillman and Savini Muller. They won their first gold medal since Vienna of 2024. So that's 15 months of a drought that they broke by winning gold there in Cape Town. Did so with a win over Rijsselskoen and Katja Stam of the Netherlands. It's been so good to see them reunited. They're one of my favorite teams to watch. I just love any team where their joy is just so obvious. And Raisa and Katja, they're just happy people. And I really enjoy watching happy people do their thing. And so it's back-to-back silver medals for them. They will be a landmine in the World Championships. I will get to that in a bit, but congrats to them on their second straight silver. Did so out of the qualifier in Veracruz, did so out of the qualifier again here in Cape Town. And then the bronze medal went to another German team, Sandra Ittlinger and Anna Grune. Their first elite medal as a team. Not only that, it's Anna Grune's first medal in anything above a futures. And so she just skipped the challenge podium, said, yo, let's just go straight to the elites. And so they come away with a bronze, beat Tina Gradina, Anastasia Samoilova of Latvia. Their excellent season continues, even though it's another fourth. Anytime you make the semifinals, anytime you're competing on a Sunday, it's a good event. On the men's side, big breakthrough, triumphant return of Sweden, Jacob Holting Nilsson and Elmer Andersson. They won their first elite gold as a team. They had made the finals in Stad, lost to Sharif and Ahmed. They had made the finals in Montreal, lost to Anders Mol, Christian Sorm, and then they made the finals here in Cape Town. Went ahead and beat the resurgent Austrian team, Timo Hammerberg and Tim Berger. They had that kind of little slump at the beginning of the year, and they've since sort of brought it back together. And we've talked about it a lot, that it's hard to plan your season to peak in November. And you see a lot of these teams have had this sort of mid-season malaise, and now there are certain teams who are peaking at the right time, Hammerberg and Berger being one of them. So their silver medal is also their first elite medal, and like Grune, they just skipped the challenge. They had never medaled in a challenge, straight to an elite podium silver medal for them. Now, after the qualifier, I did a little recap, and I said fall is breakthrough season, and indeed it is. As Hendrik Mol and Matthias Berntsen, they not only make their first elite semifinal as a team, they go ahead and win their first elite medal as a team, beating Remy Bassero and Calvin Aie in a dramatic 3-set match, 15-8 in the third, I believe. Might have been closer than that. But either way, good finish for France, breakthrough finish for Norway, and a huge congrats to the 7 American players who were making their first elite main draw. Extra shout out to Piper Furch, coming off a starring senior season at Cal Poly. Her and Tegan Van Gunst, they took a 5th. Corinne Quiggle, Chloe Lorraine, they continue their tour de force here in this fall breakthrough season. Tim Brewster and Ryan Ierna, they had a huge win to break pool over Paul Henning and Louis Voost. That's a legit win. That's a resume booster there. So a big congrats to them, and apologies to everyone I might have forgotten making their first elite debut. Cody Caldwell. Me and Cody have a lot of history in Cape Town. Cape Town is actually the last international event I played. I'll be resuming my international play, not resuming, but doing a brief little appearance at the Pompano Futures with Miles Partain in December. But that was sort of my last real event where I was attempting to be a good beach volleyball player. And me and Cody, we were up 13-8 in the third set against the Bayo brothers, and we went ahead and folded like a cheap lawn chair, and we went hiking and enjoyed Cape Town. So Cody, glad to see that him and Wyatt, they didn't win any main draw matches, but Cody, he was in the main draw, got to enjoy more than one terrible match in Cape Town this time. So they made their debut as well. That is, and a congrats as well to Sunniva Helen Hansen and Nina Pavlova of Norway. We have a Norwegian player at Florida State, Julia Tenoy, and she said that was the first Norwegian women's team to make an elite main draw. So another breakthrough for another team there from Norway. Congrats to them. And Sunni, I met her when she was actually starring at Stetson on court 1 with Carly Perales, and it's good to see her. I think she's a really talented player, and so Norway, big breakthroughs. USA, lots of breakthroughs. German women, big breakthroughs. Actually, had someone asked me how Sandra and Anna Grune sort of came back in that resurrection round. It's just point differential. Again, I didn't pay a close enough attention to give you like an exact breakdown, but it's your point differential from pool play and the round of 12. And if they had a better point differential than, say, Louisa Littman and Linda Bach, that's what it was. That's all I got for you. But that's it. That's all the housekeeping notes I have. Ravens won. Let's go. Morale is high. So on to World Champs. I was thinking about it last night after we got back from Tavares, and I took a little walk after we put the kids down. And this is going to be my third World Champs that I'll be commentating the finals, and every match from quarterfinals on. I did Rome with Simon Golding, and that didn't quite feel real because we were, I was just using this mic right here, and you just plug it into the USB port, and you do it in a room like this, and it's, it's fun to commentate the World Champs because it's World Champs, but I wasn't there, and it didn't feel like I was commentating the World Championships. And then the next year in Tlaxcala, Mexico, I was in person with Clayton Lucas, and that felt real because the crowd was unbelievable. But I was still so new and raw, and I don't think I appreciated how cool of a moment it was, especially to watch Kelly Chang and Sarah Hughes kind of end a USA World Championship winning drought when they beat Anna Patricia and Duda in an awesome final. I was just thinking about it, that it's third straight World Champs. It's, to me, winning a World Championship's harder than winning an Olympic gold. The field is double the size. Country quotas doubled from 2 to 4. Objectively, it's a more difficult tournament to win. It doesn't make it more significant, but it's the biggest event on the Beach Pro Tour calendar outside of the Olympics, and it's cool. And there's a fun responsibility to doing that. And so I don't know. I was just thinking about, did I just want to shine a light? We got these new lights here, and my whole thing, when I used to journal daily, it's kind of gone away a little bit, but I used to kind of end everything with shine that light. Shine a light onto others. When I write stories, I want to sort of lift them up, shine a light onto them, and that's the big thing that I want to do, is shine a light on this game and the players in it, especially on the biggest stage you have outside of the Olympic Games. And a commentator, no one ever turns on a match because I'm commentating or Kyle's commentating or Denise or Rich or Simon or whoever it may be. You're sort of there just to accentuate and emphasize what's going on, and to hopefully just take the play that's on there that's thrilling and make the product a little bit better. And you never want to be a distraction from that. And so that's the goal in a couple weeks in Adelaide, is just to accentuate the players and highlight them, and to shine that figurative light in this case. Well, we got the literal new lights here in the Tallahassee studio. But that was just something, I'd been thinking about. It's cool, that this will be the third World Championship I get to do, and it's an honor, and I appreciate everyone who enjoys my commentary, and for those of you who don't, I apologize, and I'll try to be better. But yeah, on to the women's pool play breakdown, and just a refresher of the format. If you missed the men's breakdown and don't know the format, so it is a 48-team round-robin pool play. So there are 12 pools of 4 teams. Every team will play the other 3 in their pool. The top 1 and 2 seeds will break out into the 32-team bracket. The top 4 third-place teams will go into the 32-team bracket. The third-place teams, ranked 5, 6, 7, and 8, will be playing each other in pigtail rounds at the top and the bottom. So the top 2 will play each other. The winner will play into the 1 seed. The bottom 2 will play into the 2 seed. The last 4 place finishing third-place teams will not break pool. I call this pigtails. Volleyball world will call them lucky losers. Call them what you will. And that's where it's different from the Olympics, where in the Olympics, every single third-place team breaks it out. In this case, 8 of the 12 make it out. And so it's point differential matters. And so how you decide these tie breaks is, and that it goes for all across pool. Matches 1. If I win 2, you win 1, I'm moving on. Then it goes to set differential. A sweep win is better than a 3-set win. A 3-set loss is better than a sweep loss. If at that point we are still tied, it would go to point differential. And that's how the tiebreakers are decided. So every point, every set is very important throughout the World Championship, the pool play process. And if you have any questions, just holler. I know these formats are tricky. They're changing with every event. Just trying to make it easier for everyone to follow. That's the big goal right there. All right, on to Pool A, where things get weird. Tamla Cordello, Victoria Lopez of Brazil, Lisbeth Auca and Claudia Gaona, Peru, Tetiana Lazarenko and Daria Romaniuk of Ukraine, and Julie Corrales and Michelle Valiente of Paraguay. So I said where things can get weird because all this World Championship will take is one strange event to happen, and that's going to throw the whole ensuing bracket into chaos. Already, we can have that here because you have the number 1 team in the world, Tamla and Victoria, but they're not really a Death Star number 1. So we've seen Death Stars before with Kerry Walsh-Jennings, Misty May. Very difficult to beat. We've seen them with a number of other Brazilian teams, Ana Patricia and Duda. Even Kristen, Nuss, Taryn, Brasher, I would kind of put almost in that Death Star category. This year, maybe not as much because they've been vulnerable to a couple weird upsets. But an upset can very easily happen, particularly with Ukraine. I don't think Paraguay is going to take them down. I don't think Peru is going to take them down. But Ukraine's had a fantastic summer, especially for Lazarenko. Now, Lazarenko did a lot of her damage earlier this year with Marina Hlayden. They're not playing together. I don't know why. I would guess an injury, but it's just kind of a guess. I don't know. Now, she's had a tremendous year where her and Hlayden swept Rebecca and Carol in Yucatan. They beat Kelly Chang, Molly Shaw, and Quintana Roo, and then they beat Rebecca and Carol again, and in Star Yablonki ran the table without dropping a set. And so that's how good of a team you have here who can absolutely take down Tamla and Victoria. And so now I'm still picking Tamla and Victoria to win this pool, but mark that matchup down as one to get your popcorn ready and keep an eye on. Now, I think that Paraguay will be safe. I think that they will break pool. I don't think they should have much of a problem with Peru. So the big match in Pool A, Brazil versus Ukraine. Pool B, speaking of Ukraine, will the Ukrainian summer continue? This has Rebecca Cavalcanti, Carol Salgado of Brazil, Marwal Abdeladi and Nada Hamdi of Egypt, Valentina Davidova and Angelina Camille of Ukraine, Mila Konink and Desi Poyez of the Netherlands. And so you have Rebecca and Carol, clear favorites to win this pool, playing very well, coming off that gold medal in Rio. But then, of course, you have another Ukrainian team, Davidova and Camille. Camille, of course, one of those linchpins of TCU's NCAA championship winning team. And speaking of TCU, they have, I believe, 5 players from their team playing in this World Championship, where they have Camille, they have Daniela Alvarez, they have Tanya Moreno, they have Maria Gonzalez, and they have Alanis Navas. 5 players from the team that we were just competing with in the NCAA. They are in this World Championship. So good on Hector for doing that. But you have Camille and Davidova. They have 2 marquee wins this year where they beat Valentina Gottardi and Reka Orsi Toth. Valentina, of course, one of the most electrifying players in the world. Hamburg champs. And then they have a huge win over Kristen Nuss and Taryn Brasher, both of those coming in Ostrava. Rebecca and Carol, they're fantastic, yes, but they are far from immune to upsets. They have lost a number of matches this year to teams where it was sort of puzzling. Mentioned their loss to Ukraine earlier. They got mashed by Linda Bach and Louisa Littman. And these aren't bad losses, but the parity on the women's side is as big as I've seen it, where you don't have that big Death Star team at the top, nor like that kind of 1, 2, 3 that they're just going to walk through. It's very deep. And so again, we could see another big upset here with Ukraine and Brazil and sending that playoff bracket into a mess. Now with Egypt in this pool, everyone they shouldn't have any trouble breaking, and so it's just a matter of what happens with the playoff bracket. Pool C, the calm before the storm. We have Taryn Brasher, Kristen Nuss, USA Volleyball, Pamela Bawa, Esther Mba of Nigeria. Apologies if I'm butchering these names, doing my best. Vice Backhouse and Emmy Van Driel of the Netherlands, and Hegeli Almeida dos Santos and Vitória de Souza of Brazil. I call this the calm before the storm because, again, you got a Nigerian team, USA, Netherlands, Brazil. They'll have no problem breaking pool. And so it's pool play for Kristen and Taryn will be a glorified warm-up where you're going to have 2 tough matches against the Netherlands and Brazil. Good teams, not great teams. They should win. They will get tested enough to sort of get going in Australia. And then you have what happens after the playoffs. There comes your storm. Because when talking with Kristen and Taryn, I think that they will view anything less than a podium as something as a disappointment. I think that a lot of USA fans will view anything less than a podium as something of a disappointment. And some small subset of that will probably look at it, anything less than gold will be something of a disappointment. Fair or not, that's kind of the trade-off, the price that comes with greatness. And indeed, they're a great, phenomenal beach volleyball team. And they're having the best year of their careers already. They have tied their career high for wins on the Beach Pro Tour with 3. Their 81% winning percentage is the highest of their careers. They didn't lose a single match on U.S. soil in tournament play this year. And so Kristen and Taryn, you can't ask for a whole lot more coming into this. But pool play for the calm before the storm, Pool C, it's a warm-up for all 3 teams, really, but especially for Kristen and Taryn, who just want to get that groove. They want to find that groove they found in Stade. They want to find that and continue into the playoff rounds. Pool D. Before we get to Pool D, I'm going to have a quick sip of coffee. Now, this is not a 5 o'clock hour. This is a little post-lunch pod, so brain's working a little better today. We have Megan Kraft, Terese Cannon, USA. Mirza Mucheza and Vanessa Muyanga of Mozambique, Anna Grune, Sandra Ittlinger of Germany, Lezana Placette, and Alexia Richard of France. I called this one Cinderella's No More because I remember in Mexico, Terese and Meg, they go into their final match, they win, and they end up winning pool. And I talked to Terese after, and she's like, we didn't even know it was possible. And they were sort of this kind of cute underdog, plucky story. Megan was super young back then. Not that she's not super young now, but she's a proven presence on the Beach Pro Tour. They're not Cinderellas anymore. They have 3 Beach Pro Tour medals to their name. They have a second-place finish near win at the Manhattan Beach Open. And they are a serious contender, not only to podium, but to win this World Championship. And I say that without any sense of hyperbole here, where no team has knocked on the door of winning more than Terese and Meg. I called them the bridesmaids of the Beach Pro Tour when they fell short for another silver in Joao Pessoa. You can only be a bridesmaid so often until you become the bride yourself. And I actually have a bet with Kyle that they will win an event this year, and this is the last shot I got, unless they play Itapema in early December. But they have been as close as anybody without winning. They've outplayed a number of teams. It's just a matter of putting it all together at the right time. Now, putting it all together in a 48-team tournament is very difficult, far from outside of their abilities. As Terese and Meg, they will be a top 5 contender to win a medal here at the World Champs. And again, same as every other pool I've mentioned so far, you get Mozambique in your pool. Other 3 teams, no problem, you're going to break. And especially the match I'm most intrigued to watch is their matchup against Germany, Anna Grune and Sandra Ittlinger, who are coming off their first elite medal in Cape Town. And meanwhile, you got Lezana Placette, Alexia Richard. They were excellent throughout the Paris quad, qualified on points alone, didn't need a wild card. They've kind of had that post-Olympic struggly type year. They're capable of beating anybody. They just haven't done it consistently enough this year, where I would be particularly concerned with them upsetting Terese and Meg, for example. But their match against Germany could be an interesting one, and Germany's match against Terese and Meg will be an interesting one. Pool E, Intrigue begins. Tina Gradina, Anastasia Samoilova of Latvia, Atenas Gutierrez and Susana Torres of Mexico, Giada Bianchi and Claudia Scampoli of Italy, Reka Murakami and Asami Shiba of Japan. This is the first pool where it's not very clear who's not going to break. And on the surface, everyone would probably point to Mexico as the team least likely to break. And that's fine if you want to put them as least likely, but they are very capable of beating Italy. They are very capable of beating Japan. And Japan is very capable of beating both those teams as well. Now, Scampoli and Bianchi, they have displayed the highest ceiling of anybody of those 3 teams. I don't think Tina and Anastasia will have too much trouble winning this pool. They will have no trouble breaking this pool. But Italy could come in second, could also not break, because they have the highest ceiling, but they're not immune to upsets. They're still young, still sort of getting in that groove. But Atenas Gutierrez of Mexico, she's impressive. And I remember watching her throughout the 2023 not Olympic cycle, World Champs cycle, when Mexico was hosting so many events. And Atenas is legit. Don't know too much about Susana Torres. I would know if I was still playing Norsekas and getting to see them, but haven't seen her play much at all. But I know that Atenas, just on her own merit, is fantastic, and she could be a problem. And then you have Reka and Asami Shiba, and I actually coached against them in Hamburg for Brooke Bauer and Maddie Anderson. And almost any Japanese team, they're going to be ball control gods or goddesses. They're just these perfect platforms. And they're undersized, but they had a set point against Cindy Tillman and Savannah Mola in Hamburg. That's how capable they are when they're controlling the ball and running this little tempo offense. They're tricky, they're shifty, they're frustrating. So I don't know. It's kind of a coin flip, I think, between Mexico and Japan for who breaks pool. But this is really where it starts to get interesting in terms of who is getting out of pool. Pool F, Dr. Jekyll or Mrs. Hyde. Duda Lisboa, Anna Patricia Silva, Kayla Mears and Tara Phillips of Australia, Marie Sarah Stoklova and Marketa Svazilova of the Czech Republic, and Natalia Okla and Ursula Lunyo of Poland. And I say Dr. Jekyll or Mrs. Hyde, and that's a kind of a shout to Duda and Anna Patricia, where even when they were dominating the Paris Olympic quad, you never really knew if they would have that sense of urgency to smash a team. And this year especially, they haven't made a final since Paris, and then they're coming off 5 straight bronze medals. So clearly they are capable, but they've just been lighter this year as a team, as individuals, and so they haven't really had that just go out and kill mindset that they had throughout the Paris Olympic quad. And so who knows what Anna Patricia and Duda are going to show up. Now, the greatest teams show up in the biggest moments. World Championships, which they won in Rome. They came a couple points away from winning in Mexico. these are the tournaments that are going to get you excited. And I wonder if they're at a point, they've been at such a high level where if they, not that they get bored, but they get relatively disinterested in the ho-hum minor events, and they can only really get jacked up for the biggies. And talking with Phil Dahlhauser so much, he kind of had that same thing where motivation would kind of come and go, but the biggies, you never had to worry if Phil was going to show up. And I wonder if we're starting to see that from Anna, Patricia, and Duda, and we're going to get a glimpse at it in a couple weeks in Adelaide, Australia. As for the other three teams, I think the Kayla Mears and Tara Phillips of Australia, home team, home field advantage, perhaps, but they haven't won a match on the Beach Pro Tour this season. Stakova, Svazilova playing pretty well, and Okla and Lunio, they had a really nice run in Alanya and Starya Blanki. If I remember right, they took back-to-back fifths, and then they took a fourth at the World University Games and actually lost to Audrey Koenig and Alexis Durish of Florida State. And I was worried about that match because I know how good that Polish team is, and Alexis and AK kind of took it to them. But I think that Australia will need a pretty heroic effort to break this pool, but I'm most interested to see what kind of Anna Patricia and Duda show up in pool play, or if they're just going to kind of hold the cards tight to the vest until elimination rounds begin, and then it's all bets are off. Pool G, the honorable mention pool of death. We got Kelly Chang, Molly Shaw, USA Volleyball, Stephanie Fejes and Jasmine Fleming of Australia, Daniela Alvarez, Tanya Moreno, Monica Polakina, and Aina Rapulaita of Lithuania. So I said honorable mention pool of death, so it's not the real pool of death. That one is coming, but it's pretty close because you have three teams in this pool who are boasting Olympic experience. You got Kelly Chang, two-time Olympian, Monica Polakina, Aina Rapulaita. They qualified for Paris on points. It's hard to do that on points, and they did it. Then you have Daniela Alvarez, Tanya Moreno. They took a fifth. The only team that doesn't have any Olympics experience is Australia. And you never know how it's going to go at home. But they're coming off consecutive fifth-place finishes at challenge events. And a lot of people look at Australian teams as maybe the weaker one in pool. But it's hard. It's expensive, it's far, and it's hard to travel for Australian teams. That's why we've really only seen a handful do it. Talika Clancy and Marife Artacho is kind of really the only one we've seen recently on the women's side traveling. But Fejes and Fleming, don't sleep on them. And it's been a tough year for Polakina and Rapulaita. They had that great run throughout Paris, like a lot of teams. It's been a bit of a down year since, but they're always dangerous. And I don't ever count out a team with the street ball or the swagger, the killer instinct of a Monica Polakina. And then you got Rapulaita, who's 6'4", and then you got Daniela and Tanya. They've had sort of an up and down year, as expected. Again, post-Olympics, then they go straight into TCU, win a national championship, straight to the World Tour. It's just been one thing after another, and I think that they deserve a long winter's nap after this World Championship. So this pool, every match will be very difficult. I think Australia will be the slight underdogs. I think the third, fourth place battle will be between Australia and Lithuania, depending on which Lithuania shows up, because that's a Lithuanian team who they can beat almost anybody on any given day. Pool H, Civil War. Svenimola Sinja Tillman of Germany, Moreno Abdallah, Brenda Churin of Argentina, Linda Bach, Luisa Littman of Germany, and Maria Gonzalez and Alanis Navas of Puerto Rico. So two main elements here, Germany versus Germany. Haven't seen that matchup yet between Germany's number one in Tillman and Mulla and a team who I think has an argument as Germany's number two in Lippmann and Bach, who have won a challenge this year, finished second in another. And as they say in the Australian parlance, they've taken some scalps. They've got some big wins this summer. Very interested in that matchup. And then you have two very differently constructed teams in Puerto Rico and Argentina. Smaller, creative, ball control oriented. Little is known about this Argentinian team. They don't travel much, but Argentina sort of always finds a way to send a competitive women's team that not many people have really seen much on. That said, I still have to give the nod, the edge to Puerto Rico, because you have Navas and Gonzalez, They win that national championship at TCU. No small thing there. Alanis was the best court three player in the country, along with Sofia Izuzquiza, who's going to be a problem for Spain and for TCU in the future. And now they've played 8 events this year. They played 7 Norsekas. They won 6, one bronze in the other. So they have 1 loss in 7 events in Norseka this year. And I know it's Norseka, but to win, you still have to beat what's usually a decent developing team from the USA, what's usually a decent developing team from Canada. And every now and then you'll get sort of a random team who's fairly talented. So to play 7 tournaments and only lose 1 match is impressive. And then the one challenge event they've played this year, they come out of the qualifier in Veracruz, they win a bronze medal there. And so they've lost 2 matches this whole season professionally. And so I got to give the nod to them, but I wouldn't totally sleep on that Argentinian team. Pool I. Now we're getting into the real pool of death. Valentina Gottardi, Reka Orsi Toth of Italy, Marie-Alex Belanger. The spelling is Bellinger, but I know that that's just the American way to pronounce it. I will clear that up before we get on the comms world champs. Leah Monkhouse of Canada, Lexi Denenberg, Julia Donlan of USA, and Olivia McDonald and Shauna Polly of New Zealand. So this is the pool of death to me, and for sure. Baby pool of death, honorable mention, pretty close. But here you have one of the best up-and-coming teams in the Beach Pro Tour, most electrifying player in Valentina, and Reka Orsi Toth. And then you have the most physical team from the deepest federation in Julia Donlan and Lexi Denenberg. Then you have a Canadian team with a very sizable athletic blocker in Belanger and an experienced, talented player in Leah Monkhouse, who I actually got to catch up with briefly at Savvy Simo and Evan Corey's wedding. And then you have New Zealand's top and very well-traveled team in Shauna Polly and Liv McDonald. This will be their 14th event on the Beach Pro Tour this summer, and I think that that's a good thing. It's a good thing to have that experience, to get tested, to get some good wins, to know that you can match up with anybody and you can compete with them. Now, I'm going to give this the nod to Valentina and Reka, and I think it's at the end of the day, it's going to be between New Zealand and Canada for who breaks pool. But this could be pretty messy. This could be one of those pools where you're going to get a couple 2-1 teams, a couple 1-2 teams. There's going to be tie breaks galore. Every match in Pool I is going to be must-watch volleyball. Quick refresh. All right. Pool J. 2 medalists, 1 pool. Melissa Humana Paredes and Brandy Wilkerson of Canada. Dina Malal and Mahasine Siad of Morocco. Aileen Chamereau, Clemens Vieira of France, and Raisa Schoon and Katja Stam of the Netherlands. It's always fun to see when you get one pool produce multiple medalists. I've seen it a couple times in elites actually, where one pool has produced 3 teams in the semifinals. That's how you know it's legit. And you want to be in a tough pool because generally speaking, that means that it's a higher likelihood of getting an easier road in the playoff rounds. And so you have Mel and Brandy having one of the better, more consistent seasons of their career, coming off that gold medal at the Montreal Elite, where they looked like superwomen. They were untouchable in Montreal. Then you have Schoon and Stam reunited, and it feels so good. 2 straight silver medals for them. Looks like Stam is fully healthy, fully recovered after whatever her injury was. Schoon is one of my favorite players to watch, as I mentioned before. Chamereau and Vieira, they're having a breakout season. They took back-to-back medals in Starya Blanki and Alanya. They were the wild card French team into the Paris Olympic Games, and now they've become the #1 French team by virtue of how well they've played this season. And again, Morocco shouldn't be much of an issue for any of these 3 teams in pools. Everyone's going to break. It's just a matter of, do we get 2 medalists from Pool J? Pool K, Parent Trap. Just so glad I had an excuse to name a pool after what an iconic movie. Anouk Verger-Depré, Zoe Verger-Depré of Switzerland, Chrismil Peniagua and Julie Beth Payano of the Dominican Republic, Dory Klinger, Rania Klinger of Austria, and Elizabeth Alchin and Georgia Johnson of Australia. So you have the 2 sister duos, the Verger-Deprés and the Klingers, having breakout seasons both as teams. The Verger-Deprés is their first one on the Beach Pro Tour, and they won that huge bronze medal in Stade. And then the Klingers, they've sort of established themselves as an elite main draw team, and they've stayed there, and they've proven to be a very difficult team to beat. And then you have Alchin and Johnson. They've had a solid year. They've beaten some excellent teams, including Valentina, Gottardi, and Reka. Orsi, Toth did so in Montreal. And then you have a Dominican Republic team that hasn't medaled yet in Norseca's. And if you haven't proven that you can get past the quarterfinals in a Norseca, it's going to be very difficult to beat a team at the World Championships. Their best shot will be against Australia, but again, that's an Australian team that's displayed a fairly high ceiling, and they'll be at home. They don't do the time switch thing. They're comfortable. They're eating the food they like to eat. They're getting their workouts, their practices. Everything's familiar, so the edge will go to them. But excited to see how the Vergé Praise and Klinger matchup goes. Pool L. This is the last pool. The coin flip. You got Toliko Clancy, Jana Milutinovic of Australia, Jingji Wang and Xinyi Xia of China, Tanya Huberli and Leona Kernan of Switzerland, and Leah Kunst and Melanie Paul of Germany. Who's the top team in this pool? Does anybody know? At first glance, it would have to be Switzerland and Kernan and Huberli. But Huberli's coming off an injury. They've been out for quite a while. And they're also, it's sort of a lame duck tournament. It's their last one together, as after this season, Huberli's returning with new mom, Nina Brunner. She determined that she wants to come back and give it a go. So she's reuniting with her Olympic bronze medalist teammate. Makes total sense. Kernan, meanwhile, is going to go with another new mom, Joanna Mater. So congrats to Nina and Joanna for their kids. Got to see Joanna actually in Stad, and she's doing super well. Both of them loving their mom life, but they're coming back. And so how's that going to work out when you know it's your last tournament? I don't think it'll have any weird vibes. But Leona and Tanya, they were one of the fastest rising teams on the Beach Pro Tour before that injury sort of halted their season in the middle of its tracks, and now they're playing for their first time in several months on the Beach Pro Tour anyway. And so it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that. And then you have Leah Kunst and Melanie Paul. So Melanie Paul, good friend of ours here in the Mewhirter household. My wife Delaney coached her at Pepperdine, and then they actually played a Swiss Tour event together and lost in the finals to Zoe and Esme Bobner and went to 3. But the FIVB, if anybody's wondering, well, where did Melanie go? The FIVB, clearly with nothing better to do, found that Melanie had competed in some youth event for Chile a million years ago and put her on probation until they could clear her. And so she's cleared, back to playing with Leah Kunst, who's an excellent blocker for Germany. They're young, they can make mistakes, not super crazy consistent, but high ceiling. Can beat anybody, okay, especially in this pool. Then you have Xinyi Xia and Jingzi Wang. Well, we haven't seen them since May when they forfeited out of the Xiamen Challenge. And if anybody's heard me commentate Xinyi Xia or just heard me podcast about her, especially in the Road to Paris, I think the world of Xinyi Xia and her game as a defender. I think she is fantastic, and that's a dangerous team. Don't know a whole lot about Wang, especially with them, like Huberli coming off an injury. What China team is going to show up? And then you have Australia. You have one of the best players of this generation in Toliko Clancy, who has an Olympic silver medal to prove it and 3 Olympic appearances to prove it. Her and Jana just haven't really found their rhythm as a team. But I'm never counting out Toliko Clancy. Never in a million years am I counting out Toliko Clancy. And so that's Pool L. That's your coin flipper of a pool. And that is your women's breakdown of the World Championships pool play. So I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Next week, you'll be back to your regular SANDCAST programming. Bourne brought on Brian Lewis. He did not ask him about his fight with Kent Steffes, so going to miss that story. And then after that, I will be in Australia in a couple weeks, and so we'll be doing some podcasts on site with my boy Kyle Friend. So it'll be good to get back out there. Haven't been to Australia since I lost in the Coolangatta qualifier in 2021. So it'll be good to get back down under. So appreciate you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in Australia. Shoot.